Good gray. Good gray array. Make a say, liaise some way. Limina radiate. Particle matter wave. This is the phase dilate. Band of illumination, you are the radiation. Mind, freight. Chariot. Beway. You carry it. Your sentient frame is updating olive branch and lariat. I'm recovering executive function here at the mystery font. Good gray. And I just saw something. And I wonder when you think this was made. Was this made within the last month? Or within the last year? Or do you think maybe even nearer to 2020, nearer to the last presidential election, say? When do you think that this comes from? Let's get the sound. All right. Oh, come now. If you can't let me start it at the beginning, you're going to have to let me start it at the beginning. Like, I'm not going to mess around with this. Whatever. All right, so when do you think that that was created? I'm wondering when you think that this was created. Because I think it could have been created some time ago. This could have been made before 2020. It could have been made in that campaign. It could have been made any time in the last few years, for sure. When do you think that this was made? Let's see if there's a date on the end of this, and let's watch it again. There wasn't a date, but I know when it was made. I created this video called Siege in 2017, in, I believe, right about this time, February or March. And it has been accurate ever since. We have to change that. We have to change the accuracy of that video by removing Steve Bannon and Donald Trump from spheres where they can tickle things that will kill things. That was made essentially eight years ago, seven or 8 years ago. 7 years ago. And prior to the election, I'm not the only person who predicted that the woodwork was not being paid attention to. That I feared Donald Trump would, by hook or by crook, and potentially by actual voting numbers without fraud, I was convinced that he may win. But for sure, we had seen numerous threats from him that he would cheat, and largely inferred by his numerous assertions that the election would be rigged, that it was already in some way illegitimate, or essentially doing everything that he could to discredit and demoralize and degrade confidence in it, which is typically something you do only if you want to make something easier to take over and sell for scrap. So let's look at that one more time. Now with the knowledge that this was created, I would assert that this advertisement, or this video that we're going to watch again, could have been created at any time in the last 7.5 years, 7 years. That essentially I think the only thing that gives it any kind of timing is that it can't have been, technically it cannot have been probably until 2017 when I did create it and put it out around, I think, February or March. It may have been as early as January, but in the first months of the presidency itself, because I make reference to him as President Trump. But other than that, if we're going with the idea that that it was correct to call him President Trump in the video and literal, then I think it could have been made any time since then and be entirely accurate. It's sort of odd that it doesn't mention the insurrection, since that's such a major thing in the flow of time since 2017. But, and other things related to that, but it is entirely accurate. And the main features that it calls out, and some of them repeats or expands upon or clarifies, it's not rocket science. It's all the stuff they were threatening about. But even talking about, raising a red flag at the point of baseless accusations of millions of instances of voter fraud, degrading people without evidence by saying that that's the case, and that, you're claiming that many people are dishonest and fraudulent and lying, and it's unbelievable. But it's also, without evidence, a really shitty thing to say about your own people, or really about anybody, without any basis. It's not telling it like it is, it's having no respect whatsoever. And it's being of the lynch mob brain syndrome guild. It's the Marjorie Taylor Greene energy that you just start lighting things on fire rather than going through normal channels and saying, oh, did you mean to say, as opposed to, I see that you meant to. We do have to apprehend that the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones energy is a plan of attack. Whether it's simply acculturated into them and that's their kind of little area of homeostasis, that, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene's constant attacks are involuntary, essentially. Maybe her neurodiversity is such that she is a fetid pool of contempt trying to recycle a heroic sense of itself that conquers. I have no idea. But what else, what are we to hypothesize other than that she is a sleeper for the Ku Klux Klan? Because there's more than just a George Santosian will for a spotlight. I think she's probably interested in experiencing a lot of, I think she'd like to hurt people. That's the bandwidth that comes through, is someone who enjoys hurting people and wants to share that with other people. That Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be trying to share violence with people. And it's totally abominable and has no place in society, and certainly no place in public office. She is a reprehensible terrorist. And held to account, the laughingstock of a court, I can't believe the proceedings by which she was allowed to run again. That would be a good thing to watch, actually. Maybe later tonight, but at some point soon, that would be a good place to play some time to let our minds play about remembering what that was, because I think part of the trauma we're going through is that we don't really remember how bad it is along the way. And we don't necessarily remember how terrifying it is and excruciating and humiliating to be held over a barrel by someone as singularly cruel and malicious and terroristic as Donald Trump. He had us over a barrel before. Just like Elon Musk suddenly going predator on his wedding night and saying, "I wear the pants in the family" at the first dance. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. I married an ex-murderer, ding, ding, ding. It's not good to find out that we've married an ex-murderer, but we ejected him from the house and we're getting a restraining order. And he's not coming back to make an honest woman of us. Not with that axe. There's no way he has goodwill for America. There's no way. You don't frame yourself as an antagonist and say you want the power to do bad things. You don't have credit as someone who says you're joking about keeping people in suspense until you do. You don't have credit when you try to destroy the presidency and then want to come back and say you did nothing wrong and that you're coming back. There's no way that that's good faith. There's no way that anyone who has honor would put the presidency through that. You wouldn't do the crimes that could so threaten the United States. You wouldn't do one of those things. And if you did, you wouldn't be so foolhardy as to try to ridiculously try to evade what is obviously real, or is better faced up to, whatever it is, as a leader. Interestingly enough, also tonight, Joe Biden crushed it. That was cogency that Trump has never displayed about politics, ever. About world affairs, never displayed about anything except something he is directly connected to and has had to memorize for some reason. He's never in office without a script on the few times he's actually followed a teleprompter. He has never been able to come anywhere near the verbiage and the meaning and context that Joe Biden gave tonight at the State of the Union address. But Biden was largely off the dome there, or was following but putting it into his own language. He was there in real time with the meaning of this, communicating. That was a speech, that wasn't a recitation. He is at play and leading. And confident enough to, even with a stutter, talk about the king's speech. And this is not a nation with kings, he's a president. But the president's speech, someone who has dealt with a disability and a deficit in learning as people around them see, to say, oh, this kid can't talk, being made fun of. If you have a stutter, would you like to be making one of the most important moments of communication? Like, would it be fun to do that with someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene in the room, ready to scream at you with a targeted plan of strategic attack and caustic shame? There's clear antagonism, anti-American antagonism. And I think he was blazing through saying Roe v. Wade a couple of times really fast in the midst of a ton of stuff. I wish he would have just slowed down. But even when his speech was like slightly unclear and just a little slurry or anything, in the midst of a lot of language, or if he would get tripped up, he'd just pick up where he left off, and he never lost a thread. And again, this wasn't little sound bites. This was an ongoing, meaning narrative, following nuance and moment to moment, and an unfolding path. This was actual human thought, unaffected by something like AI, unaffected by just like a rambling proto-diarrhea voice that takes up space. And when it's not speaking, like Donald Trump. Like, it couldn't be clearer how little competency and how little availability of brain cells Donald Trump has by just letting Joe Biden speak tonight. He's not the best person in the world for this moment, but he's quite good. We did pretty well, especially for someone who is more elderly and someone who has some stubbornness, and a white man at this moment, a white man of that age at this moment. It's tough. It could have been a lot worse. But that's what came through tonight. That man who actually, for all of his problems, and there are problems, there are things that he has to learn. But the vim and the vigor, the presence, and absolutely the clarity of mind, not just knowing where he is, but knowing what the fuck time it is. Like on the clock of the right side of history and the wrong side of a fascist disaster. Project 2025 is actually looking at somebody who knows what the fuck it is and can knock it the fuck out or be a part of that. He's not asleep at the switch. And exactly how calmly clear, like, it's interesting that Trump grabbed the red light, like fiery speech image for a post that he made tonight and not an image from tonight's speech. Because Joe was active and engaged and pretty full-throated for a gentleman of slightly more advanced age, but on top of it and letting his voice be fucking heard. I wouldn't be surprised that he didn't look at the teleprompter. But it was clearer than any speech Trump has given in years. And Trump has never given a speech with that density of information and never with that much actual germane information or vision. Not to mention things that are just true and real and correct, like that the ACA is still doing good things. And there are things about it that should be renewed or fostered more. That the CHIPS Act and other things that he did, Biden has done, have been positive. I mean, lowest unemployment, just a little bit of something that actually is very tangible and real, and people can actually look at their bottom line, or will be able to in coming months, and see more and more. Whether or not you like him, there's going to be a flip where people realize, and it becomes clearer and clearer, just the basic as fuck projections we're looking at. Just projections. In terms of when Trump says that someone is creating a hoax, he's definitely working on his own hoax. And it's likely essentially a mirror version of what he has just accused. He is accusing someone that he is perpetrating that on, or they're within a structure that he is doing that to the entirety of. I think his dementia and the understanding that it's easier to believe the truth means that he's going to take the lie that is a mirror image of his. It's easier to remember what he's trying to do to other people and claim that they're doing it to him. It's an easy to remember lie. So that no matter what happens, he can always pick it up. He can always pick up where he is in the contour and the cosplay of that. And whatever happens with the legal cases, it's citizens' duty, I think, to rescue meaning and educate ourselves and one another. Because the media has sadly been doing a really poor job of talking through what's happening when there are any bits of news in these cases. Instead of explaining what's happening, especially if there's something where there's really germane information that will help people understand where there's mens rea or ill or goodwill. And instead of laying that out or saying, let's actually go through what the judge talked about and let's go back and listen to the statement they made, like, they're convinced this was just egregious fraud. This is a Trump appointee. Let's listen to the speech that this person gave, upon being appointed. In fact, at the time, they were called out for. I mean, whatever. It's so clear. It's so clear. And yet it's not being just opened up for view, because instead of explaining, like, this is what actually happened. It's been said again and again, this is not a legitimate legal case. And that's been promulgated enough that we need to really sort this out. As far as we can tell, like, this is what has happened. This is why this massive amount of money looks to be very much called for. This is why. This is what happened. These are the facts. Because in an effort to avoid Trump's wrath and in an effort to try to stay in as many households for ratings as possible, no one is really saying what's happening there. No one is really holding him accountable, Trump, for the absolute shrieking of malice and violence of what he has done. No one is saying, yes, he meant to do that. He meant that. He had meant that all along. We're in incredible danger as long as he has any pathway to hold a job with power over anyone, but certainly political office. It has to be off the table. He is a maniac. He is a megalomaniac. And after pooping in the soup once and having a lot of difficulty, telling people, in fact, hey, you know what? We're going to get you another soup. There's a little problem with the soup. Hours later, he says, hey, actually, everybody, don't tuck in anyway. If you have, hopefully you haven't tried the soup yet, but I think some of you have. It tastes a little funny. Ends up there's some poop in there. I'm not sure how my poop got in the soup. I would never stoop. I know my duty. I would never. I would do my duty through your soup, but not in your soup. But I did clearly. And if I meant to, you'd like it. I mean, that would be amazing if I had done that. But I did not do that. And if the people who did that will be hunted down. And it wasn't too long before he started talking about, actually, the soup was actually pretty great. And some people said, they got a bit of a taste, and they said, better is maybe a kind of a flavor that was at a level that nobody had ever really seen before. And maybe some of these cooks that were arrested for little salt and pooper in the souper, he went down and sang a little song with them, because actually they're hostages. They're not making poop sausages. They're hostages. He's coming back saying he doesn't want to see any hiring interference. He's looking for a job, and it would be us interfering with his chance at employment. And this restaurant and everything that it depends on is way less important than his ability to get a job at this one place where he shat in the soup already. He pooped in the soup, and he's coming back saying he has a great recipe and he's never done anything wrong. What the fuck? It's time to wake up. So, this was made in 2017. Yes, the mindness here at the mystery font. That siege, that piece, was made in 2017. And I think everything that it says about Steve Bannon, about Trump, about their attack on women's rights and autonomy, on the environment, our habitat, upon the trustworthiness and security of voting and the trustworthiness and honesty of Americans. There's just, it is a siege, and it does continue, sadly, to this day. And it couldn't really be more it can't really be more devastating what we're confronting. The threat of Project 2025 is Nazi dictatorship, period. That's what Stephen Miller is bringing. And we have to mark the murderer. Stephen Miller, or M, is not the only one who needs an M on their back, but he is one, and simply probably the architect of incredible harm if we don't stop it. Let's look at another piece from that time. Yes, shall we? This is another piece from 2017, from March, I believe, of 2017. It could have been made at any time in the last 7 or 8 years, I would assert. And here it is. Let's watch that once again, from 2017. we have a lot of work to do. Sometimes it means remembering to turn on a microphone feed so that I can be heard. We have a lot of work to do to assure that Project 2025 does not come to pass. We need to assure that M's attack is a joke. And this time around, it seems the Nazis do not give a fuck that their distractions and their harm and crime may irreparably damage for humanity a place on planet Earth, that our substrate of this habitat that is friendly to us, we may lose our relationship to that if we are not able to steward oceans from collapse, if we're not able to ascertain what is happening and get ahead of terrible programs of deregulation, of stewardship, and of decimation of things that cannot be restored, that are fragile parts of the ecosystem, that are under attack, while we're fending off fascist apocalypse and dictatorship. In part, it's all a distraction from all the stuff they're doing underneath. It's all a distraction from all of it. It's flooding the zone with shit, just as Steve Bannon recommended. We are under attack. It is a siege. It has been going on for 8 years. And 7 years ago, I made this video with which maybe we'll close out this for now. We'll see how we feel after we watch it one more time. For this to be as accurate today as then shows that this statement is correct. It may seem slow, but we are in the middle of one long siege, and we have to wake up.